If you've ever left a conversation and then immediately started to replay the whole thing in your head, and you're just kind of like scanning for all the moments that you thought you were either like too quiet, too loud, too weird, you said the wrong things, whatever it is, you already know that there is a voice up here in your head that doesn't ever really shut up. What you might not realize is that that same voice that criticizes you also interprets everyone else for you. So in interactions, it's reading other people's facial expressions, it's decoding text messages, it's deciding very often before another person even speaks to you whether or not that person is judging you. So today I want to share a yoga teaching that has really helped me to start seeing this voice in my head for what it actually is. And it's not about fighting it. It's not about trying to silence it. It's just about seeing it for what it actually is. And then this can start to make really big changes in our lives, probably more than you think. I'm Tanya, and this is Neurodivergent Yoga. So here's how it works for a lot of us when we're neurodivergent. We spend years, sometimes decades, sometimes from our first memories, running this kind of internal commentary. So it's trying to help us catch mistakes before they happen. It's about correcting ourselves. It's about trying to become some sort of version of ourselves that won't get criticized, that won't get rejected, that won't get told that we are not enough as we are. And so we have this voice, and then someone else walks into the room, a partner, a friend, a coworker, somebody that we're hoping might be a friend or a partner. And then suddenly this voice in our head, it takes on a whole new mission. Now it's not just monitoring what we say and do, it's also taken on the job of monitoring how we're being perceived by someone else. So this voice in our head, it starts scanning other people, scanning their voices for signs that we have said or done the wrong thing. It replays conversations over and over again, looking for those moments where, once again, we said or did the wrong things and we just weren't good enough. It analyzes our text messages, which can be very, very easy to misinterpret, where somebody maybe just says, okay, and then the voice starts to figure out, well, they just said, okay, does that mean they're mad at me? They didn't say anything else. What's going on? And so somewhere in all of this, this voice in our head, it stops being about us at all, and it takes on this whole nother job of managing our relationships. And so the relationships that we have or that we're trying to build, they become something for us to monitor, something to get right, something that if we just keep scanning, right, often enough, carefully enough, then hopefully we're not going to mess up. And the thing is, this voice in our head, it didn't come from nowhere, because most of us, when we're neurodivergent, we learned very, very early that our natural way of being human wasn't always welcome or accepted. We're too forgetful, we're too sensitive, we don't focus enough, whatever it is. All of these things, we built this radar around it, like an early warning system is what I call it. And the job of this warning system was to scan or protect us before something happened. And that is not a character flaw. That is us as neurodivergents adapting. That's survival. But the radar, now that we've built it, it doesn't always know when to turn off. And it doesn't always know the difference between somebody who's being critical and somebody who is just trying to get to know us. It just keeps scanning all the time. And sometimes the voice isn't really talking about us anymore. It starts telling us what other people think about us, what other people the meaning behind what they're saying means something about us, something about what they're about to do to us that we need to protect ourselves from. And that is where we really need to start slowing down. So there's a yoga teaching called Svadhyaya, and it translates loosely to self-study. And when I first heard that word, I really thought it meant that I needed to really just like sit down and analyze myself, analyze everything about me and my relationships, and just figure out, where I'm going wrong, dig into all my patterns so I could like dissect them and understand them completely. Basically, turn myself into some sort of a research project. But with more study, I've learned that that's not what Svadhyaya is at all. Svadhyaya is not about fixing, it's about witnessing. It's the practice of stepping back just a little bit and watching your own mind, kind of the way you'd watch maybe a rushing river. You don't jump in, right, to the rushing river and try to redirect the current, make it go a different way. You don't yell at the water for, flowing the wrong way. You just watch it from the riverbank. And so if you think of that voice in your head this way, when the voice starts scanning someone else's face for signs of rejection or disapproval, Svadhyaya says, wait a minute, I see what you're trying to do, mind. And this is not about pretending that this voice is going to disappear once we've noticed it. That is just not how a lot of these patterns work, because the voice, it's going to be loud. The body is going to like tighten and brace up and prepare to be rejected. Those old stories are going to show up really, really fast. And they are going to keep going, especially in relationships where we care about another person. We care about what they think, what they feel, and what they think about us and feel about us. But a Svadhyaya practice gives us, what it does is it gives us a little space between the feelings that we're having and then the stories that we're building around it. So instead of realizing that, our chest and our body feels tight, so this person must be really mad at me, and I don't really know what's happening, I don't know what I did, we start to notice, yes, my chest and my body are tight, but what is my mind saying about it? Is my mind building a story that they're mad at me, they disapprove of me, they don't like me, they don't love me? And it might sound like a really small difference, but over time, it starts to change the whole relationship that you have with that moment of tightness and that story. Because now we're not treating all of our signals, those rushing signals, like truth. We're not treating every fear that we have like a truth. We're starting to watch those patterns form before we let them overtake us. And that is where something really starts to shift. We can start to see and notice as we're watching ourselves from that riverbank that the tightness in our body isn't always proof that something is wrong in our relationship with somebody. Sometimes, very often, it's just our old radar, our old alarm systems, old patterns. Sometimes it's just the part of us that has learned very quickly out of protection mode to start scanning for rejection before we even have the words or really know what's going on. And in that moment, when we can stand back from the riverbank and watch ourselves, we have a little bit of space. And it's not always a huge breakthrough, and it's almost never like flipping a switch, but it's enough space to slow down, start slowing down and asking yourself, what is actually happening here with this other person? And what is my nervous system, my patterns adding to the story? And that's where we start to shift into more self-awareness. Because when we can stop letting a lot of those old voices kind of control and interpret every look that someone has, every facial expression, every pause, every text message we can interpret. We start to give those relationships a chance to be just human. We give that person in front of us a chance to be who they are instead of who our fear is telling us that they might be. So here's something to try, something really small, because small practices over time make really big changes that can stick. And when we're overwhelmed, taking on a lot of stuff, it just adds more things to our to-do list that we don't need. So the next time you're with somebody and you notice that scanning starting, right, that tightness in your body or however it comes up for you, we can start to look for clues that we have just left the conversation and we've entered the commentary. So that's just a doorway into Svadhyaya, noticing the moment we stop being present with a person. And then in our minds, we start managing what we imagine they might be thinking of us. And then we can ask, what story is my mind building right now? And then the more we practice this, the more we can come back to the fact of the situation before we start to respond from a place of fear or rejection. And maybe we do need to ask more questions, or we need to investigate a little bit more into what's going on. And that is great. That is communication, which we all need to do more of, myself included. We don't have to let the old stories give us like definitive answers before we know what is really true for the other person. So that is the yoga of Svadhyaya. Not trying to make these voices disappear, just slowing them down enough to let them stop running our relationships. We don't have to become that voice. We get to watch it from their side of the river. We get to name it. We get to step back just a little and see it for what it is. And it does get easier over time. And that small step back, that is a yoga practice. And that's how we can start showing up differently, not perfectly, ever perfect, just differently, more present with the people in our life. I would love to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever caught yourself reacting to a story in your mind before you actually really knew what was true for somebody else? You can also leave a question if this is something that you're navigating right now. I'll be in the comments and we can talk about it. And I'll see you in the next video.